The next key project question is cost. This is obviously your budget. So with your budget, make sure you have enough detail in there. So don't just say construction, $2 million. Talk about the actual components of the construction. Be clear about how they have been determined. So you've got to talk about each item within the budget. You've either got to attach a quote, which shows how that dollar figure has been determined, or you've got to give some sort of a calculation. So how have you worked it out? So your project management or some other costs, how have you worked it out? Well, it's going to take X number of hours at a cost of $50 an hour. So that's how we calculated that budget line item. Each item should be easy for an assessor to understand, or explain that you have purchased this particular thing in the past and this is how much it cost then. So you've got to have a reason for why you've come up with that particular budget for that particular item. So go into enough detail, make sure you explain it, evidence as much as you can. Don't forget to include the costs of any grant requirements. So the RED grants often require an audit depending on how much money you're getting as a grant. They might require you to do an audit. So make sure you put the cost of doing the audit into your budget. Now, cash versus in-kind. The difference, in case anyone is not sure of cash versus in-kind, cash is something that you are giving them money. So you are actually paying money for something to be done. In-kind is something where you're giving up your time or some other resource other than cash. So if I am on a salary and I am going to do some work for the project, that's just in-kind. I'm already being paid. You're not putting any extra cash towards the project. You're giving a different resource. You're giving my time. If somebody is volunteering to do something for you and not charge you, that's in-kind. It's only if someone is putting forwards cash that it's referred to as cash. But again, if you have any questions about that, speak to your Regional Development Commission. They are there to help. Now, leverage funding. So make sure that you look at the guidelines. Each grant is different as to how much leverage funding they might require, which means how much money they require you to put in or somebody else other than the grant funding body. In the case of REDS, it's about 30%, minimum 30% that you need to put in. But speak to your Regional Development Commission if that is not something that you're capable of. Have a chat to them and they'll explain to you whether or not it's an absolute requirement, or if you are a not-for-profit, for example, there may be some wiggle room, but you need to speak to them if you can't get there. But ideally, the minimum is 30%, so you need to have some money coming from elsewhere. You can't have that money coming from state government. You can't say, I'm going to get this amount from state government as my 30% contribution, and then I'm going to ask state government for all the rest as well. So you've got to actually look at where the money is coming from. You've got to find this leverage funding, and you can't just put state for a state. So they're the key project questions that you need to answer. So now we'll look at the actual RED grant assessment criteria themselves. So we'll go into the actual RED grant in a bit more detail. So each commission, so each Regional Development Commission has a slightly different application form.